Hello and welcome. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ishtiaq Mahmood from Dhaka Tribune. Thank you all for joining us. Today, I'd like to welcome you all to discuss the practices and benefits of learning business English. With me today are Sabiha and Raphael, two teachers and corporate trainers from the British Council. Hello,
Hello.
Raphael.
Yeah,
Hi,
yeah.
Sabiha.
Thank you for inviting
Hi.
us.
Yes. Nice doing this.
So we'll get right to it as people are joining in. The first question is for Raphael. Why is it important to know English in the professional environment?
Well, I mean, if you think about the language you have to use every day for your work, it's quite obvious, and it's a global language. Even if you think of it from the perspective of, let's say, a carpenter who works with woodworking business, and you just want to grow your business, and there's so much competition, and you want to sort of expose your business to the outer world and um, increase your sales. So you have to sort of communicate, and this is the language to use. Everybody, almost in all the countries, they use this for trade, for international trade. So you have to use this language. And if you think about jobs, applying for jobs, most of the companies in Bangladesh as well, you'll see that they would ask you to write a CV, and that too, you have to do it in English. In most organizations, multinational companies, they would have interviews in English. Even the internal exchanges that you have, often you have to write emails in English. So that's why English is so important. Yeah.
Is important in the current context as far as the professional environment is concerned. The next question is for Sabiha. What are soft skills?
So these are skills that we would call as people skills. And then if you compare it with soft skills and hard skills would be something that people would be doing manually. Say an engineer would do some manual work. As Raphael said, carpenter, the manual work itself is hard skills. Soft skills would be people skills. Things like social skills, communication skills, even your personal traits, your behavior, or your ability to do presentation, public speaking, writing reports, and different writing skills and speaking skills that you would need to communicate with others. So these are things that you would be doing in your office to sort of communicate and put across your message. So these are soft skills, and these are mostly functional language, which usually comes in chunks that you can sort of learn and practice and become better at. That's why we call them skills, because through practice you can become an expertise, and you can sort of improve and develop slowly. So yeah, that's what soft skills are.
Thank you, Sabiha. I think you mentioned functional skills. Could you elaborate on that a little?
So these are so there is a function why you are doing this. For example, presentation. Why do I need to present something? Maybe you have a new product that you need to present to your clients or customers. So when you are doing the presentation, you would be using some fixed phrases to do the presentation. Or maybe you're writing an email to your clients. So you will again use some fixed phrases or fixed chunks to write the email. So you'll have a beginning, proper organization of the email. You will know what kind of language you need to use, whether your client is somebody who is very close to you and you have a personal relationship. Therefore, you can be very neutral. But it's a new client, then obviously you're going to use formal language. So all the soft skills have objective or a goal that you're trying to achieve. So that's the function. I mean, why are you actually using this particular language?
Sorry, I think you were on mute.
Yes.
Can't hear the question.
Yes, Rafael, the next question is for you. So let's say we have a certain level of soft skills already. Now, why would it be important to develop that continuously or periodically?
I mean, it's not something that you can memorize and then every time, I mean, in every context you can use it like that. So you develop it through experience as well. So for example, let's say we talked about the functional, Sabiapa said about the functional language. So let's say you understand that, let's say requesting information, that's a function. And for that, let's say you memorize certain phrases, but then you find yourself in a context where these phrases simply don't go. So this experience will tell you that it was a failure and you learn from it, and maybe in a different situation, you'd then be able to apply and use something else to match that context. So it's a constant learning really, and experience is the best teacher here. And also, I would say learning from the true teachers. There's this concept that I came across a few days ago. It's fake teacher and true teacher. Like fake teachers are, for example, who teach something, but they actually don't have to use it in real life. And so, for example, in this particular case, you are hosting this session. So you would be a true teacher as to how to sort of moderate a session like this. And if I were to do it, I would be a fake teacher in this case, because this is not my true job. So it's also important to observe and learn from the true teachers around you, how they actually face different situations and how they use the language in that particular situation. You have to constantly learn and grow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just to add, maybe it's kind of like part of your own personal development and motivation, and how you actually improve your own personality and habit. So in working life, you can't stay in one place. You have to keep on learning all the time. So that's why it's very important that you keep going and you continue the journey.
Thank you. Yes. Also for giving us the example of fake and true teachers. So the next question is for Sabiha. What is the difference between communicating within the office and with a different office? And this has another part, but we'll come to that.
So to do with, first of all, when you're communicating within your office, you still have different people and different posts that you need to communicate. So for example, let's just talk about teachers. So when we teachers are together, it's a different kind of a language. But when we have our seniors, it's a different language and the approach is different. We become a bit more formal. And then when we are in a meeting with the whole office, again, it's different language, different gestures, different way of communicating, and it becomes more formal. So that's, I mean, these are the different layers within a particular organization. But then again, think about how we, say, one organization communicate with another organization. So it's completely different because you have to be aware of the culture and the different aspects of that organization when you're communicating. Say, for example, if you go to a government office, your approach will be different compared to maybe if you go to a multinational company. So it varies. And as a professional, it's important to understand that and accept that fact that you cannot be speaking all the time in the same way. So you have to change your tone, you have to change the language to formal or to informal or stay neutral, and even the choice of words that you sort of have. So specific grammar and specific range of vocabulary will come in depending on who you are speaking to, in what situation, and where.
Thank you. Yes, I agree with that as well. It often varies from one company to the other, depending on the industry, that it's the culture verbally or in written language is very different from, let's say, a startup to a multinational corporation. It can be quite different. And the second part to that question was the difference between communicating with one person versus communicating with a group.
So and again, situation is the most important aspect to consider. Under what circumstance you're speaking and who you're speaking to. Say, for example, you're speaking to your boss, the tone and the function and the formality changes. You're speaking to somebody who is a subordinate to you, again, the tone and the formality will change. And when you're speaking to somebody who is in the same position as you are, who may have become a friend of yours, the tone will change. And then when you have, say, for example, you are in a meeting where you have a group of people, and depending on what the meeting is about, again, the language and your choice of words, how you say it, how you present yourself, everything changes. So it's based on the situation and the people that you're going to speak to, that you vary your choice of either grammar or the choice of vocabulary that you use.
Got it. The next question is for Raphael. It is, how can we distinguish between being too polite versus being impolite?
Right. I think you have to sort of understand the situation as Sabia just mentioned, and that would tell you, that would dictate what kind of language you're going to use. There are certain words that have certain connotation, and then your knowledge of that is going to help you decide whether you should use it in that context or not. Um, for example, you could ask someone to say, "Give me that," or you could say, "Can you please give me that thing?" So just adding can make it sound more polite. But again, you have to understand the context, and you're talking to your, let's say, your brother or sister. May I suggest you do this now? It would sound very inappropriate, too polite for your sibling, isn't it? So you have to understand the situation, and this is why the soft skill is important. You understand the situation, and it's the critical thinking. You are analyzing the situation. You know at what situation what to use. That's a soft skill, really, that you need to develop. Understanding when to say what and how to do it, how to say it.
Yes, that actually makes a lot of sense, especially when you're thinking about being as authentic as possible. And if we come off as too polite, then this might sound insincere.
Right.
So that's something that tends to happen a lot,
Yeah.
surprisingly.
You also need to understand the office culture really. I mean, certain companies, you might find that that you have a common area where colleagues get together, they have some fun. And so it's like a very informal situation. And then you don't want to carry that mood into a meeting room. It's more serious. Get back to business, and then you start being more serious and using appropriate vocabulary in that context.
This actually brings me to a question to both of you about knowing the etiquette for particularly verbal communication within like formal settings in a meeting with updates versus a social meeting where it's more like a gossip, maybe a cup of tea. So our verbal communication varies quite a lot between these two settings. So any tip on that?
Like for example, in a meeting, you will have a proper structure. So before you go into the meeting, you'll probably have somebody sending you to the minutes of that meeting. You'll kind of go in knowing these are the agendas and these are the points that will be discussed in the meeting. And and then um, and then also there will be like certain things like, when do I interrupt, how do I interrupt if I want to say something, or how do I sort of manage myself getting involved in the meeting. So you have all these, again, as I said, functional language. You have different functional language that you can sort of use to sort of interrupt someone in the middle of the meeting saying, can I suggest something, or I don't think that's a good idea. So there are specific phrases that you can use when you are in a meeting. And then, of course, as I said, there is a particular structure in a meeting. So you will have somebody who will sort of make notes of all the things that has been discussed. And at the end, maybe everyone else in the meeting who are present will get an email that this is what we discussed in the meeting. These are the action points. This is what we're going to do. So the structure guides the meeting. Whereas in a social context, you will probably may not have the structure. You may not have the boundary of, or not boundary, maybe the restriction of who's going to speak and when and what they can say and what they can't say. Because sometimes, you know, in a meeting, you go in and there are things that that is in your mind, but you know this is not the right place to say it, not in front of everybody. So that's the basic difference between formal meeting with socializing with maybe colleagues, or maybe even having a meeting with colleagues. But of course, if you don't have that structure, then of course it becomes like, you know, socializing, and then you don't have the specific objectives that you have to reach at the end of the meeting.
Yeah, I'd just like to add to that. I mean, brings back to like being polite or rude. I think another important aspect of these meetings or this conversation is that your ability to listen. Again, part of that soft skill as well, and genuinely listen so that you can actually provide feedback or say something which is appropriate and relevant to the topic. If you're not genuinely listening, you might end up saying things that don't make any sense. And even if it's like a social gathering, like with your friends, I mean, if they find out that you were just there, not listening to them, paying attention, they might be offended as well. So yeah, listening. And as I just did here, and I'd like to add, so this is another sort of expression that you can use in any meeting when you want to add your ideas. There you go. I just wanted to give that example.
Thank you.
And
And yes,
just been an yeah, just been an active listener, and then using the appropriate language to interrupt. Yes, good.
yes. My takeaway is always pay attention. That is quite useful as far as a tip goes. The next question is for Sabiha again. Is how can we? I think you were talking about this, both of you already, quite a bit. How do we stay firm and maybe interrupt and stand our ground when we need to, without coming off as rude?
Yes, again, Rafael being saying, so again, having the knowledge of the language to sort of, point out things or agree or disagree or interrupt without being rude. For example, Rafael, I think, mentioned can, the use of can, or other modal verbs that should need to, or would it be a good idea to, suggesting something, or maybe using questions like, why don't you do this? How about we sort of talk about this later? So again, having the knowledge of the right language thing. We don't say, I don't like this. I don't think it's a good idea. Or I'm not too sure this will be, or this will work. So again, you are disagreeing, but in a more polite way, rather than saying, I don't like this.
I think an important aspect of that is, and I agree with this, that we're being empathetic to our colleagues or our seniors, team members, that we can voice our opinion without essentially disregarding theirs, which leaves room for perhaps a compromise or maybe collaboratively figuring out a new solution. So yes, this is definitely relevant in this context. Um, the next question is for Rafael. So why is it important to use specific tones in a business meeting?
Um, I mean, of course, I mean, you don't want to sound rude. That's why you have to be polite. And I think you already mentioned some of the key words like empathy and compromise. These are the things that actually give you the result of any meeting. So you want a positive outcome, you have to not only think about yourself, you have to think about the others in that room and be respectful. That will actually dictate the tone that you use in the meeting. Yeah, can't be like too friendly, just like best buddies, and you can say whatever you like. No, that's not going to work in meetings. You have to be slightly formal and polite as well.
Agreed. How does it help negotiate better? This maintaining this tone.
Um, it's just a respect that the other person respects me, and it automatically tells you that, oh, I can't deny that person is so respectful. You automatically think like, maybe I can negotiate, I can compromise a bit. So this actually helps in a lot of dealings and negotiations. Yeah, just be respectful. Yeah, that's it.
Yes,
That's key.
yes, that is the gist of it. To be respectful, pay attention, and the rest will be smooth.
Yes.
Um,
And if I may interrupt, if I may
yes,
interrupt, it's in whole. I mean, when we talk about language for professional, negotiating is a whole whole particular area where you have language related to building relationship, questioning, clarifying, and bargaining. Um, you know, when you are doing the negotiation. So this is a very huge area when we think about learning, you know, so it's a huge skill, and there are lots of segments to it that people can work on and develop to sort of improve in negotiating with others.
Thank you. So we were mostly talking about the nuances of verbal communication, maybe a little bit about writing. But the next question for Sabiha is more about writing. So we understand that, be it a meeting within the team or to my line manager or to a different department, and especially to partnering companies outside the organization, it's very important to be concise, like not to waste people's time. So we would like to know a little bit more about how to do this better, about being concise. Like I know I struggle with this myself, so I'm sure more than a few do.
So when we talk about writing, email writing is the most important thing that comes to my mind at the moment, because you have, I mean, if you're communicating through writing, you're obviously writing emails. So again, having the knowledge of the structure of how to begin, how to end, and what's the first thing that you say, even, and how you say it, all that comes into this. Again, the context is very important. Who you're writing to, what your objective, and what's the situation, and what's the message that you're trying to put across. It's very important that the writer has experience writing. Then, and then maybe if needed, put it in bullet points, and sure that you say things specifically to the objective, not to move away from the objective, because as soon as you move away, you will start to sort of say irrelevant. Um, so keeping the intention of just putting across the message is the key to sort of success in writing, and also making sure you sort of understand the tone based on the context that you're writing, whether to keep it formal or put across. That's the main.
Yes, I think we had a bit of a network issue back there, but we got the gist of it. Thank you. The next question is for Raphael. So, not every profession out there requires the same level of language skills, as we know. And how can you determine how much English you need? How does one go about figuring that out?
Um, I'd like to just give a bit of background information about the different levels. So you've got the four skills: the reading, listening, speaking, and writing. Now, not everyone might be at the same level for across the skills. So someone, let's say, might be at a higher level of proficiency, let's say in speaking, whereas not so much in writing. It's possible, right? Um, Now, as a business organization, you need to understand like how much English do your employees need? What's the function? I mean, what is their job and how much English is actually required for that? And if you can find out what exactly is needed, then you can just teach them that part. So for example, if you think about, let's say, waiters in a restaurant. So it's important for the waiter to understand whether that person would be able to take the order and then would be able to repeat it, obviously, then you can sort of narrow it down and teach the language related to that. You don't need the person to go into sort of the language that you would need for, let's say, a debate. So that's it. So as a business organization, you understand the need, what is required. You can hire a professional, tell them about your need, and then get the course tailored for that need. Same thing for maybe other profession as well. If you think about English for drivers, it's important for them to be able to understand the directions or give directions as well, picking up someone, and things like that. So you just have to understand what is needed at your job, and then to perform that job, what functional language you need, and then maybe just focus on that. Yeah.
Yes, that makes sense. Sabiha, so the next question is, um, since we talked about paying attention, being empathetic, a large part of that has to do with reading, because we tend to read a lot of messages, emails every day, formal and informal. So is there something to be done as far as reading comprehension can be improved?
Definitely. That's another skill. I mean, when we talk about skills, we have the reading, writing, listening, and speaking. So just like, I mean, so far we've been talking about writing and speaking, but when it comes to reading, that's also a skill. And it's very important to be aware and know some of the sub skills. Say, for example, you have a report that was given to you, and you were given 15 minutes to sort of summarize the report. So, and the report is quite big, and you're like, oh my God, 15 minutes, what I'm going to do? So that's when your ability to maybe do something like skimming or scanning comes handy. These are sub skills of reading. So if you kind of look through the titles, look at the beginning, the end, look at the subheadings, you'll get a gist. You'll kind of know, this is what the report is about. All right, what else do I need? Do I need some specific information? Again, look at maybe bullet points or look at things that are being repeated, and you kind of say, oh, okay. So these are important aspects of this report. I can use the subheadings to summarize. So again, these are subskills. Again, if you don't know how to do this, you're going to struggle. And like other skills, you can learn this, you can develop, and you can improve on this through practice.
Agreed. And while you were talking about skimming, I think there are some emails which have italicized words or bold or underlined, and those definitely highlight the things that we want to
Highlight
take
the
away.
things, yes.
Yes. Gotcha. So the next question is for Raphael. Um, it's basically, how can we prioritize tasks based on communication? Like sometimes we have to figure out what my line manager wants me to focus on for the next couple of weeks, the rest of the month or the quarter. And it might not be entirely clear or clearly stated. And how can we develop the skill of understanding, prioritizing better in these contexts?
Right. It's part of the soft skill again. So it boils down to, like, when in doubt, you ask. So yeah, go ahead and ask. I mean, if you just delay it, thinking that it's okay to maybe do it later, and maybe it might be too close to the deadline, and you might not have understood the task fully. So always ask for clarification, and that will tell you what you need to do first, and then what, and so on. Yeah. Don't be afraid to ask.
Yes, this reminds me, sometimes there is information overload when a manager is explaining something to the team, and there's like a lot of context to be shared, and on top of that, there are like action items to talk about. So it all might get a little lost. Now, is there any way we can develop listening better when we are in a professional setting, sharing updates or setting tasks, and just sort of make sure that we are walking away from a meeting knowing exactly what we have to do?
I think it's very important that we've discussed this earlier as well, like the language to interrupt. Now, of course, your line manager or the CEO, whoever is at the top, they're very busy, and they're just sort of giving you all the information, and they expect you to do the job. Now, it's your job that you understand what the task is. Otherwise, you will not be able to perform it, and you might end up losing your job. So that's why if it's in the meeting, it's very important that if you don't understand, don't hesitate, but don't be rude. So you know how to actually interrupt and use the appropriate tone to make sure that you understand, ask for repetition, and you can also ask someone to reiterate or summarize the points. And you can also do that. Okay, so let me just check whether I have understood this correctly. So you want me to do this, you point number 1, 2, 3, and through this discussion it will come up whether you've missed something or not, and then you can just add to that list. So it's very important before you walk out from that meeting room that you clarifications. And in terms of writing, even if it's a long email and it's possible that you might not understand everything fully, it's always a good practice to maybe reply to that email and maybe ask for clarification if you have any doubts. Yeah.
Thank you. We have a question from our viewers. What about using apps like Grammarly when writing official emails? Same question from me as well. I use Grammarly every day. So how do you feel about that?
So it's the same question that I would ask you since you're using it. How helpful is it?
Well, the free version is pretty helpful in itself. The paid version helps a lot more with syntax and in sequencing and making sure that the sentences are not too jagged or no run-ons. They catch things like that, which is pretty impressive. But I still think that a human touch and a level of knowledge is required.
And I think you've answered that question. I mean, it will help you to improve your accuracy, but then you have to decide whether you are going to use this tone for this particular bit of communication. You would change accordingly. But yeah, it's perfectly all right to use any help that you can to improve your accuracy. I have no objections in using such apps. In fact, I would encourage everyone to use it if it's possible, but make sure that you understand the context and you're not allowing the app to dictate. You are actually in control. You need to be in
Yes,
that position. Yeah.
I was just going to point that out. The fact that the context and the situation and the objective of your email is something that's internal to you. So an app like Grammarly will kind of work on your language and work on your range of vocabulary and accuracy, but it cannot sort of give you, I don't know, give you help with the situation, you know. So that's, I think, I mean, as you said, the humanly touch, the emotion, the choice of words actually bring out the emotion. Say, if you're very angry, that's going to come out in the email. But if you're polite and you think about it, so those are the things that the app may not consider. So yeah, to be careful about it, and to sort of make sure that the choice of language that you have from the Grammarly app, I mean the app, doesn't change the meaning that you wanted to convey through that particular email or that particular message.
Yeah, so I just have to add this point because you mentioned about being angry. It's not that because I love to hear my voice, but I have to say this. If you are angry, take some time off. Don't respond immediately. If you're sitting down, lie down, do something else, get back to it later when you are thinking clearly, and then respond to anything. Yeah. That's it.
Yes, that is a good piece of advice. I recommend like a little exercise, maybe a shower, meditating, whatever helps. The next question, and these just came to me. One would be like in a professional context, when I'm a young professional, I'm trying to figure out what to do, um, and what should I focus on in terms of communication. Like, what are the major things that will have a lot of impact in my overall improvement with soft skills? What should I focus on if there are top three things?
Um,
Go
I
ahead.
mean, I could start off and then Raphael can add things. So somebody who's, say, for example, is a fresh graduate would sort of want to see what kind of job do I need. Looking for job offers, and then there are different stages and there are different steps that you would take on that. Looking at advertisements, how to actually recognize things in advertisements, how to do an application, how to write a cover letter. These are first impressions, and they kind of matter a lot. Excuse me. So, Raphael, you want to add?
Now, the thing is like most of us like to follow trends. And it works well for most of us as well. Um, Observe. So you've just got into this company, you started working, just observe and see how your colleagues interact. And then, of course, you are going to receive emails as well. See the tone over there and learn from there. As I said, like the true teachers, I mean, they're actually doing it, and learn from them. And however, it also depends on your personality. I mean, if everyone was following, then who would actually start off that trend? There are people who are adventurous and they would like to take risks and do things differently. And if you are that type of person, this is why it's very important understanding yourself, what kind of person you are, the interpersonal skill. It's also very important. And if you are that kind of person who likes to take risks, sure, I mean, start a new trend, go ahead. But knowing that you might fail, people might not like it, people might reject it, but you need to be able to accept that if you are that type of a person. And hopefully you'll be able to move on and carry yourself from there. I'd like to just give an example. Like when I was a child, I used to think that if you have to give presentations, there are certain attire that you have to wear, very formal, a suit or something like that. And here comes everybody knows Steve Jobs and wearing jeans and T-shirt, giving presentation in front of the audience. So that's a new trend now, and you find this happening nowadays. So obviously there are going to be some trendsetters. You need to know yourself and then act accordingly. Know about the risks as well.
Mhm. Also be able to identify how confident you are on this. Steve Jobs wearing jeans and doing presentation, and handling that everyone in front has a shock or laughing. So you should be able to handle that. So being aware of again soft skill of doing presentation, how to handle stage fright, how to sort of handle or be be able to stand in front of a big audience and speak. So these are again part of soft skills, presentation skills, public speaking skills, your ability to even go into an interview and not stumble or not get nervous and say the wrong things. So again, the soft skills comes in, because there are certain functional languages, there are certain way of speaking that you can again learn, develop, and practice. And that's why you would do different courses with people like us. You want to improve your interview skills, or you want to sort of find out how to sort of go about writing cover letters, filling up applications, how to prepare yourself for interviews, and then what are the things to do or not to do during interviews, things to do, not to do, presentation, and then actually practice these with other people in the classroom who actually came in to the class with the same objective. So these are things that you can, again, learn and develop and improve and become better at.
Thanks. So we have another question, and this is kind of what you were talking about. Like, how can you suggest any book or resources to learn about writing a good cover letter? You mentioned a cover letter. So any resources? One would be British Council, as you mentioned.
Yes. I mean, our website is so rich, and it has, you don't have to do anything. You just have to log in. It's free, and then you have to search cover letters, and you'll have number of samples, and you will have the stages explained to you, and then you can also practice. Because again, what Rafael was saying about true teachers and authentic material, that's important to actually go into the right place, which guide you the right way.
Right. Yes, we could have easily named this webinar "Learning from True Teachers." This seems to be the biggest takeaway we have. So another question is about what kind of programs or learning opportunities are available from the British Council itself. Rafael?
So we do have our like regular courses which cover some of the elements that we talked about today. The functional language, they come up like writing CVs or interview skills, or also sort of participating in any meeting, like giving suggestions, agreeing, disagreeing. These functional languages come up in our lessons as well. And if you're thinking about the corporate courses, you can of course reach us, and then we can provide you with tailored courses. So that option is also available. And as Abia mentioned, there's also the learnenglish.britishcouncil.org. It has a business English section there as well. So you can go through it. There are some materials that you can go through for free. So yeah, a lot of resources available.
And to add to that, our regular My class give students the option to choose which area they want to sort of improve on. So they have a long list of items that they can choose from. They can pick and choose, and they can plan their own learning the way that they want to sort of do, when they want to do it, how often they want to do it, and what are the different areas that they want to improve on. So the students have the complete freedom to choose the areas, the time, as well as days, and for how long they want to learn. So there's a lot of flexibilities. And as Rafael said, we also, cater to courses according to the need and demand of our students or our customers. So somebody could come in and say, I have this group of drivers who work for these multinational companies, and they have to communicate with people when they sort of get into their cars. So we actually will tailor a course just for the drivers at beginners level or elementary level to sort of so that they can achieve that particular function. Or we might have somebody coming in and saying, okay, we have to do a lot of reports, but we don't know how to do reports or how to write reports. We just want to learn how to write reports. So we will actually cater to that. Just teach them how to write reports. So there are a lot of options.
Right. I think you just answered a question that we got, which was basically this: what kind of customized English learning solutions does British Council have for professionals, for individual companies or departments? You just mentioned that. So, unless Raphael has anything to add to that.
No, I think Sabir mentioned it. The My Class option, like you get to choose. Unlike the regular classes where we design a lesson, a course for you, you know what you need more, and you get to choose those lessons only, and you can do it at the time that you are free. So you get to choose the time. So yeah.
Okay. One more question about that is how much does it cost in general?
Right. I think in the costing, you can again, it's just you can leave a message, and someone from our team would be able to get back to you. Yeah.
Okay,
Leave it in
got
the
it.
chat. Yeah.
So we're near the end of today's show. I just had one last question. It's like when to reply in line and when not to. So this I had to learn the hard way. But there are times when you get an email where it would be rude to reply to each and every question or maybe rhetorical question. And sometimes it would be rude to not answer every line in that email. So how does one go about differentiating between those two?
Right. Sorry. So is that okay? So you've got an. Let me see if I understand the question. So you've got an email where there are a lot of questions, right? And you have to
Yes,
respond
yes.
to that. So I think you sort of have to find out how many questions are there and how important they are, and if you can group some of them together. And often if you find an email with a lot of questions, you'll see that there are some of them are very similar. So in that case, you can always group them together, and you don't necessarily need to sort of label them as 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's the answer for number one, here's the number two. You can of course write it in a paragraph in that way, so that you summarize whatever you understood from the questions, and that could be a strategy that you can apply to respond to this sort of emails. But again, you have to understand different situations, and you need to know which ones are more important, and make sure those are obviously answered. Yeah.
Thank you. We're nearly the end. So, Raphael, Sabiha, if you have anything you want to add to this about improving English in a professional context.
Um, I don't know. Just to summarize, sort of talk about the soft skills. I think it's important to understand yourself, and then and also learn from the people around you how they do things, and of course seek I mean help from the professionals if you when you think
Mhm.
that you need it, and don't hesitate to ask questions.
It's about uh, knowing your objectives, what it is that you want to learn first. You can't actually start say, oh, these are the soft skills. There are 10 soft skills, and I want to improve on them all. It's not going to happen overnight. So it's important for you to sort of prioritize them, sort of sort of realize what's the most important thing that you need to know and start with that. And then if you see that you're struggling yourself, you go on to different websites and you're still struggling and you think that you need personal feedback, that's when you come to us to actually get yourself registered for a course with us, or visit our free website, see how it's like, and then maybe come and then because sometimes it's important to go to professional people to sort of ask for help, because sometimes people around you may not be the right person to give you the help, because you could go on and fossilize learning something wrong completely throughout your life. So it's important that you make that decision for yourself. What is the best thing for you to sort of develop and change and become better in your professional life?
Okay. So, in 2 lines, know yourself and know your objectives. I think we can end on that note. So, that is all we had for today. I was enthralled by the conversation, and I hope you were too. I would like to thank Sabiha and Rafael for enlightening us. And I would like to thank our teams for setting this up. And most importantly, you, dear viewers, for staying with us. Thank you.